So there's that. And then there are the little places, the
Yep.
actual little places that are almost safe spaces or danger spaces, or, it's very, very important. I hesitate to bring up Sin City, which I
Oh, I
maintain
would.
is, well, I maintain it's brilliant in vision. I do,
Yeah.
right? And so, but it has that same thing. I mean, we've got our places. Molly's is safe, or whatever, wherever those
Hmm.
places are called. And so,
Old Town.
well, right, different places are safe, or different places are dangerous. Different places are places we can go and get certain things done. Um, those so to me, it's if you were to preset like all those places beforehand, because one of the fun things is finding out about them,
Right.
and so it's kind of an interesting question of how dynamic is that in play, or does the first session, for example, actually establish more of the setting, and then those things become fixed. So it's like you have an ability, or you have one of your things as a player is to invent one of these places into existence.
The way I'm handling it is, I think, pretty good, because these spaces are not places you can like. We could not go to any of these
We
places.
can't go in that
We
restaurant. That the the
we
the,
can't,
the Chinese
not even a
restaurant.
restaurant.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
we do not
yeah.
go. In fact, we even
That is
see what happens
arguably,
to somebody who tries to go at one point, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like that is not even. It's not even a outlandishly like difficult place to get into, and yet it remains impossible for us, right?
Exactly. Right.
So
Right.
the way I have it planned in the game is, the places in the city are uh, are determined by who the characters know, and that is how they gain access.
Certainly, right, because
So
every place is really, a very personal space, almost a pocket dimension for a given person.
yeah, so
Yeah.
you don't travel. Basically, the way you travel in the game is you don't get in your car and go somewhere. You either have to talk to somebody or have somebody bring you. Like
Right.
there's no like I'm going to go to Mama's. It's like, no, Mama called me. She summoned me.
Right. Right. Uh-huh.
Or some other person said, do you have a place we can meet? Yes, I
Yes.
tell them
Right.
go to Mama's.
Right.
So it's that kind of.
It's all
It's
communication that gets you there. Right.
it's also that's what happened. It's that's how. And this is how I got the idea. Actually, this is how Raiders of the Lost Ark works.
Right. Right.
Indiana Jones is always getting admittance to these places by contacts and by friends and allies and enemies. He's not just kind of showing up.
Right.
It's like something brought him there,
Right.
and it's a person.
So if you have that kind, and geez, sometimes manipulating people into the space where you can put the whammy on them is huge. I mean,
Yep.
how much time is spent in that first novel getting the neo-Nazi guys into the place where they can get nailed? I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean,
It's a lot of work.
A lot of time maneuvering it so that they will be there.
Right? Yep. And it's the you show up late, you show up dead.
Right.
Like you get to the place 3 hours before they do. Right. If you call somebody to set up a meeting, you're already there.
Or like
otherwise,
Flood only gets to max the Silence Dojo through Burke. Burke invites him there, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. So, but the point is, I'm talking about how these get created. I mean, the game master doesn't walk in with a pack of them in his back pocket. Or
no, I'm not going to say.
If he does, that's only part of the mix, right?
Right.
It's not like he has a map.
And they're created. Well, they're created because he or she has created NPCs that are going to be in the game.
But what about Burke's office or Max the Silence Dojo? Right. I mean, those seem to be
things that's part of the role.
Right. Yeah.
The investigator has the office. The martial artist has the space where they can train.
Right.
The driver either has a garage that he brings his car to, or a place where he can hide out.
Right.
Pulled into, shut the door, turn off the lights, and it's like he's vanished. And all that stuff is part of. Basically, it's part in the game right now. It's part of the character's list of gear.
Right. It's a couple of thoughts.
It's your domain. It's your domain.
Right. It's a couple of thoughts are occurring to me, but since you're sort of maintaining the sort of dark, wet streets of the '80s to some extent
Yep.
here, um, that aesthetic is it has what are the consequences of that aesthetic for play? And one of the
Right.
interesting things about it is that um, I mean, it just seems a little bit. I don't know how important these things are, but here are some things that occur to me. One,
Sure.
fight choreography is, by modern standards, boring, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's very uh, uh, you're either such an expert, like a martial artist, such an
Yeah.
expert that it is fucking surreal. I mean, such an expert that people can't even tell what you're doing because it's just so alien.
Yeah. Max the Silent, right? He
Right.
just grabs some guy's neck and the person goes down. It's
Right.
like the
Yeah. You
Vulcan
have
death
no
grip.
idea what the fuck that was. And
Right.
or his
And he just
descriptions,
goes
yeah, or
shrug.
the descriptions of the of Flood and the Cobra's fight is you can tell what they're doing. He like says what they're doing, but it's not
Yeah.
anything you get to lovingly watch through a set of carefully shot angles, right?
No.
No, they do it, and you're like, whoa, right?
Yeah.
And
Everybody's flashing hook kicks, and you're
right,
like, what does that even look like? Like,
exactly, yeah.
I
And
can't
so
visualize it.
there's things like that, and then there's also the the suddenness, and that applies to the martial arts, the suddenness of the impact. And then there's also the suddenness of gunplay. I mean, if
Yep.
you think about it, very few shots are fired in those books. That's one thing that
Yep.
really struck me when I was rereading is like there's like a one gunshot maximum, it's really fucking rare. And sometimes it's the possibility of a gun going off that's absolutely terrifying. I mean, in the first book, everyone remembers the little sort of zip gun that Burke has built into his, this suit.
Yep.
The one
Yeah.
bullet zip gun.
The
It'll
little
take your
Velcro.
hand off, but you will be able to shoot the guy, right?
Yep.
A range of this far.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Flood's like, what's good is that
yeah,
if it blows your
exactly.
hand off? And he's like, well, if you have to ask.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't go in. I'm not like you. I'm not armed wherever I go, right? And
Yep. Well, it's funny because in Flood, there's that scene where he goes into that where they get Flood gets mugged,
no,
or they're
yeah. There's the one where where Flood gets mugged.
go into that hole.
Right.
She kicks the guy's ass, but then he goes down and he just lays waste to them, and she's like, "Oh my god, you murdered them all!" And he's like, "I didn't kill a single person."
Right. I just blew
And
the
she's like,
place up with all these bangs and things. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I had all these special bullets and tear gas, canisters and
Right.
flashbangs to make it seem like it was crazy. And she's like, "Oh," and he's like, "Yeah, it was just a show."
Right.
I would say the one time a gun makes its appearance that it actually has it actually matters is I probably in Sacrifice, where he goes in guns blazing into that basement.
Right.
Is it Sacrifice or is it the one before, or is it Strega? But I think it's Sacrifice where he ends up killing the kid.
No, I don't. Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. I mean, that's the thing.
That haunts him for the rest of the 15 books.
Right. The situation with guns, therefore, I mean, they're not tough guy props.
No.
They're serious business. And that's kind of weird in role playing, right? I mean,
yes,
the role playing guns are a lot like they are in superhero comics. Either they are complete eye candy, might as well be lollipops people are waving around, or they are like the deadliest thing. Like one little pistol is like the most terrifying, deadliest thing that any superhero has ever imagined. Oh no, he has a gun. I have superpowers. Whatever shall I do? Right. And so the situation here is very different. There's a sort of presence of them without there being a common tool. I don't know. It's kind of strange.
It's weird. It's funny because when I was working on the polymorph, I ran into guns because polymorph is or the game that I have for it, Mazes, which is straight up fantasy D&D dungeon crawly. There are obviously no guns,
Right.
but there's really no weaponry stats. It's just part of your character. It's just special effects. But you have this thing called stars, and when you spend stars, it's a limited resource, and you have your character roll determines how many you have. They can be replaced, but it's not easy to replace them. So when you spend them, it means something. But when you spend them, you just have something happen, confessional style, like inspectors,
Right.
and there's no roll. So when I was working on the Nightwaves polymorph thing, I was like, because I was wrestling with guns. How do you make guns? It's a very difficult problem. And then I realized, oh wait, guns are just a way to get things done.
So you spend a star, and it's a way.
Spend a star, and you can use a gun,
Right.
and then tell me what happens. So you can wave it in somebody's face, and you're like, he backs down and lets us in,
Right.
or I blow this guy away and he dies.
Right.
And of course, the GM can spend their resources to muck with you. Your gun jams, or you miss, or you accidentally hit a bystander, or you
But
were
the
just
point
trying to
is
scare.
that it's not just an action like any other action. You're not rolling to hit.
Yeah.
Right.
It is a special, like,
Interesting.
this is spotlight on it. You're spending a star. That means this means something. And that was the best, most direct way I could figure out of using guns.
So something like that for Nightwaves is, in the mix.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a firearms skill.
Yeah, but you see, I think I'm kind of liking the idea that it is this other thing.
Yeah,